are listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Fouché Way radio show, live every Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m., sponsored by the nonprofit organization called Canine Hope for Improvement Program, where we hope to improve the quality of our dogs' lives by moving towards a no-kill society. The number here is 818-602-4929. Well, I was giving out medication this morning to specific dogs that were sick, and I was taken back to a time when I was treating two dogs that were afflicted with cancer. A terrible time for anyone who is going through this. I sympathize with you. And the time that you spend with those dogs, the endless nights, can change forever how you feel and see life in regards to dogs. They just don't feel sorry for themselves. And that's something to be admired. But I remembered that they both were labeled aggressive. But the chemo had captured them both. I mean, at the same time, at the same place, for the same reason, they were dealing with this, and I was helping them get through this. And something miraculous happened that bonded them together because of the similarities that they were going through. And it taught me something. Pack mentality is when the alpha or the leader makes his or her pack feel the same way at the same time for the same reason. They both lived for another year, but they taught me a very valuable lesson in their struggle. So when dogs come to me, I think about how important it is for them to be together, because they really want to be with each other. They just don't know how, because we have interfered with their ability to investigate and socialize for so long, they become neurotic in their attempts to communicate socially. And with that understanding, I begin my evaluation with knowing that shortcoming. Dogs are here as a sign for us to study. And if we're not studying those signs, if we don't know how to study those signs, then we're going to be in trouble. And so I want to bring my first guest on, Deanna. And Deanna has two dogs that were actually having a problem with each other. And it's Diana and it's Glenn.
Hi.
How are you?
Hello.
Okay.
Fine, how are you?
Great. Well, I want to talk to you because, I can't say it in any soft way. I mean, you were thinking about killing your dog.
Correct.
And,
we were.
And, we're afflicted with these types of decisions all the time because we don't know what to do, and that is the end-all solution. And so I want you to tell our listeners what you were going through and how you were led to me.
Well, it started with Tula's the younger one. She's like 9. And this last couple of months, she viciously attacked the older one, who's 13, causing major wounds where the dog had to been hospitalized. The last fight, it was horrific. The most horrific thing my boyfriend and I had to watch. And we couldn't pull them apart. I finally tried to pull them apart, and I had to go to the hospital for dog wounds.
Mm-hmm.
So we were stuck, like, what do we do with this aggressive dog that's going to kill our other dog?
How long has it been going on, Diana?
It's been going on for years, but it's the last 2 months where they got vicious attacks.
Okay.
Where I was at my wit's end, and I just thought, I don't know what else to do.
Now tell the people what the ages of the dogs are.
Tula is 9, and Roxy, the more submissive one, is 13.
Okay. All right, so, you're going through this serious problem, and what are you doing? What do? You try to get help?
Yep. Tried to call and called around, and everyone's like, oh, it's a pit bull. It's aggressive. You're just going to have to put her down. She's a pit bull, and she's aggressive. You won't find her a home. And every night I would go home and cry looking at her like, what am I going to do with her?
So was that the first time the seed was placed in your head about killing your dog? Did it come from someone that you called that was trying to help you?
Yeah, that was the first time. It was kind of like we were just done. It was exhausting for us to watch them fight.
Okay. And so how are you living with them? Separated? I mean, what's the routine when you?
Yeah, they were living separated. They were living separated until I found you.
Okay.
And we were referred to you by another dog obedience school.
Okay. And what happened? You called them for help and what?
I called them for help, and I told them I had an aggressive pit bull that was beating up on the other one, and they said they really couldn't help me, that to call Brandon Fouché because he deals with aggressive dogs.
I see.
So that's where I was referred from, and then I went to you immediately and called you immediately with my problem.
Okay. And I remember, I think, because we spoke a couple of times, we had a little problem trying to hook up, and that happens sometimes. But you are living in Santa Barbara.
Correct. Yes, we do.
And I didn't know that at first, and you were ready to jump in your car and come down.
Yep, bring the dog down and say, what do I do with this dog?
Yeah, it's very interesting when we are evaluating dogs. I like to look at two ways. Of course, you're a distance away. And
right.
And I suggest two ways. Either we do a phone consultation or you bring the dog in for an evaluation. And because you were living so far, I felt that it was necessary for us to do a phone consultation first, just to kind of determine if this is something genetic or something learned. Okay? Do you remember? You remember that?
Right.
All right. And I don't know, just tell the people what you felt, what the conversation was like. I mean, when you call me, because a lot of people don't understand how this thing works.
When I first talked to you,
Yeah.
or when we set up the appointment?
Well, both. We have time.
Oh, okay. Well, when I first called you, you recognized that the problem was not Tula.
Mm-hmm.
It was the owner, being me.
Mm-hmm.
That I completely spoiled her through her. She had no obedience training, no discipline, just nothing. She was the queen of the house.
Right.
So being the queen of the house meant she could do whatever she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Wants all the time. So you basically told me straight out when I said I wanted to put her down for her aggression. You told me straight out, so you want to put her down for what you created. Mm-hmm. And it really opened my eyes, because I thought, I can't do this to the dog. I need to turn it around.
Exactly.
And if Brandon can help me, that's what we're going to do.
And you know what's...
So,
go on.
So then Glenn and I got on the phone with you on Saturday. It was like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
An hour and a half consultation, and you went through educating us on what we need to do as owners.
And you know what?
And
I want to say something. I want to stop you right there. I'm sorry.
Okay.
In the evaluation, when I ask you to fill out the forms and send them to me, there's information there that the questions that I ask are questions that allow for you to tell the truth, okay? Because they mean something else to me. They may mean one thing to you, something else to me. And in me telling you that she was the queen of the house, you actually then changed your story and told me that you were once married before.
Correct.
Okay. And tell us about your first husband and the dog.
My first husband is the one that kind of spoiled her. He let her run to the door, and she was allowed to jump on anything, and she basically controlled everybody. And we allowed it.
Mm-hmm. And this is very important. You think that this gentleman is gone, and so there's probably no need to bring up what was going on with him, but it was as if I hit the nail right on the head because you brought it up. You told me, hey, this guy said that this dog walks on water.
Yeah, he does. He did.
Yeah, and you went along with that.
I did.
Yeah, you went along with it. And so, we had this consultation, you and Glenn, the gentleman that you're with now, and I talked to Glenn, and he said he was going through the same problems that you were going through with the dog. And, that I guess you guys had decided, I got to put my dog down. And I said, no, look, let's determine if this is genetic or if this is learned. And so I asked you to do some things based on the information that you gave me. And I want to ask you, was it difficult?
No.
Did you feel it was cruel?
No. No.
What did you feel?
What did we do?
What did you feel?
Oh, what did I feel?
Yeah, I mean, how's it making you feel now that you're doing this? I mean, people need to know.
I feel much more. I feel in command, and I feel like I am like Glenn and I are the boss now.
Okay.
When she doesn't rule the house anymore, we feel more comfort. She's a little down,
right?
Because she's not the boss anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But we figure it's better that she's not the boss because now we have control of the house, and the house is more peaceful. We don't feel like there's going to be an outburst or a fight.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you called me back and you said we're afraid.
Yeah, we were. Remember, every minute we would be like, is she going to attack her, or are we going to go to the vet again today?
Uh-huh.
But slowly, I mean, we still kind of have that fear just because it's a learning process for us, but every day gets better.
Yeah, every day is better. And how long did it take?
It took a few days, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Not even.
I mean, basically the first way we started doing it, she really responded well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you can see now that this is something that she was looking for?
Yes.
I mean, that's really interesting.
Now she just, when we say no or something, she just looks at us and she knows now.
Right. And this dog was growling at you?
Yeah.
Occasionally it would, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean.
If she didn't really mind, she would growl.
Yeah.
She would definitely growl at us. Like, no, she's not going to mind, and that's the way it is.
Like if you
not anymore.
Like if you grabbed her by her collar or pushed her or something like that, she would growl?
Yeah, she would growl in displeasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like being on the bed or on the couch, right?
Correct.
Yeah, this is very serious. I mean, because the bite, believe me, it's coming after that. I mean, you've already been bitten. And a lot of people, when they're breaking up a dog fight and they get bit, they actually think, oh, well, he accidentally bit me.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I still feel it was accidental because it was the victim dog that bit me.
Oh, the victim dog.
I don't know,
I mean, we would like to think that. We would like to think that it was an accident, and sometimes it is, but for the most part, I mean, they know you're there trying to stop them, and some dogs think that you are joining in.
Yeah, okay. See, I'm being protective.
Yeah, that's another exposure there, But, the bottom line here is, there are many people out there thinking about killing their dog. And, we really got to look at this concept of aggression differently. We look in terms of killing when we don't understand. When positive reinforcement doesn't work. When love and affection doesn't cure it. It's more than that. And I'm sure you've done all the positive reinforcement, love, and affection that anyone could possibly do. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah.
We just did it the wrong way.
Exactly. Now,
did it.
Go on.
We just did it the wrong way. We let her tell us when she's going to love us, where it has to be the other way. It has to be on the human's terms.
Exactly. And, you can do as much loving as you want. Isn't that correct?
Correct. Oh yeah, we love her all the time. We tell her to come to us, and we love her, and we hug her, and we kiss her, and the same for Roxy, and it just feels better. It just feels better in our house now.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And you're able to control the other dog also, because this is very important. And let me go into this. You've got two dogs that are fighting in the same household. One dog is subordinate, one dog is dominant and assertive. One dog has a sense of entitlement. And when you cannot control the weaker dog, this emboldens the more assertive dominant dog. They see that you're not able to control, and so they decide that they're going to make it happen for you.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what happened. This happens a lot.
Yeah.
Your dog is actually doing what she thinks you want her to do.
Yeah.
Yes, she did.
This has nothing to do with male on male or two females together. In fact, you have two females together.
They're both two female dogs.
We have this concept that two females can't be together. I mean, that's just a bunch of crap.
Yeah, it is. You just have to discipline them correctly from the beginning.
Exactly. You just have two females who are possibly seeing things pretty much the same way and getting the same cues from you, and they're reacting the same way. But it doesn't mean that they can't be together. And so your dog was trying to help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the submissive dog is not an angel.
Yeah.
She's not an angel.
No.
She throws you the finger too.
Yeah, she did, and it caused a lot of problems.
Right.
A lot of problems.
And like you said, she was the one who bit you, the weaker one.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, it is what it was. It's done and over with, and I'm glad, because they are vicious when they fight.
That's awful. Right. You were about to say it is what it is. And we talked about that the other day, and that's exactly it. I like that word. It is what it is, because that's what it is.
Yep.
So, you're doing much better now. It's only been a few days.
Yep.
Things are going to get better and better. You're so happy now where you are in life. Can you imagine if you had put that dog to sleep and then found out?
No, now I can't. Now I can't, and I'm glad that I wasn't lazy and I just didn't put her down.
And you know what?
I felt that.
What was that?
I said I just felt like I owed her a chance since it was my fault.
Yes.
So spoil her.
Yeah, we create.
I created it, so I wanted to fix it.
The neurotic behaviors in our dogs. Because of the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding. We have to change the way we think about how we were taught to deal with dogs, especially aggressive dogs.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
We just have to do that. And
that's exactly what you did with us. You educated Glenn and I a lot. We learned a lot from you on just that first phone call.
Good. And Glenn, let me ask you, when I told you that I was going to do a phone evaluation with you, consultation, how did you guys really feel? Did you feel like this is not going to work?
I wasn't exactly sure at the beginning, but the more I heard from you and learned from you, it did sound like the best way to go.
Okay. And Deanna, what about you before we started? Did you kind of feel that way too? How am I going to help you?
Yeah, I did. I thought, like, how is he going to help me when he doesn't see the dog and doesn't see us, how we interact with the dog?
Right. That's why the information is important. A lot of people think this. They say, how is this possible? When we talk about the Fouché way, we have been so brainwashed in training that we want to see how. And I always say, it's cool what I do for a living, but why I do what I do is cooler, because it is the information, it is the knowledge. If you have a very clear, effective knowledge that you can pass on, that someone else now has to be responsible for that knowledge, if it's clear and effective, this is the results that we can get, what you have done.
Yep.
You did this with this knowledge.
I know.
And it's now your responsibility to pass this knowledge on to someone else that may be having that same kind of problem that we're thinking about killing their dog.
Right. And I do discuss it with people.
Good, because I'm sure a lot of people were feeling your pain.
Yeah. I think people think it's okay if they're little dogs, but they still have the same problems.
Yes.
You know.
A little dog
Can't do it when you have a bigger dog.
Yeah, but a little dog is just a big dog in a little dog's body. Right? I mean, the behavior is still there.
Yeah, no, that's true.
You know, dogs really, they want to be together. Not necessarily the way we think in terms of playing, but they want that socialness. They want to be together. And the way that we know that is because we're always having problems with them fighting, because they're always trying to get together.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is that when they get together, because they've been interfered with in terms of how to socialize, they begin to fight. They have not learned to judge their level of aggression. And that's what socialization does. So they want to be together. I have not talked to anyone on this radio show or on the phone in my office that has said their dog got in trouble because it stayed away from another dog. No, it wanted to go and investigate that other dog, and it got in trouble.
Right.
So it's going to happen. But what we do with them when they're together is the key. That is the knowledge.
Right.
And so we will be following you, Glenn and Deanna, with your two dogs, because you've only had a phone consultation for an hour and a half. I do not want you to think that that's all you need, but that gets you on the road to where it is you want to go.
Correct.
Okay? And I want you to stay in touch with me and call me. And you have been very good at calling me so far, just keeping me up to date with what's going on. The reason why
I feel like I have a safety net with you.
Okay, good. And I want you to feel that way, because I want you to feel plugged in every time you call my number. When we finish talking, I want you to be charged up.
Yeah,
okay?
We are.
It's so important for me, for you to be successful with your two dogs, because this is what I have dedicated this radio show to, saving the lives of dogs that are misunderstood.
Yeah.
Okay? And I want you to be strong. I want you to be successful. I want you to understand this. I want you to ask me questions about this and that. It doesn't matter how small it may seem. It's significant to me, and it's significant to your dog.
Yep. And you've been very, very, I mean, I call you, you help me with, even if I think it's tiny, you don't think it's tiny, and you help me, and you make me understand. That's good. Those dogs are important to me, you know. Yeah. And as I was saying in the beginning of the show, you know, I was handing out medication today, and, you know, I look at the dogs every morning. You know, I clean and feed. I make sure that, you know, I'm very active with the dogs. And, you know, I see something in them, and it touches me. It says, man, look at all you guys who are misunderstood. If they could have just understood you the way I understand you, you'd still be in homes, or you would already be in a home, you know? It's difficult to adopt a dog like your dog to someone who's going to be feeling that when they get your dog, that you were a bad person, and all this dog needs is love and affection, you know? Mm-hmm. And then the dog looks at them and says, you're just like my last owner, so I guess you want me to do this and do that, you know? Yeah. We're going to have to change, and that change is going to have to come from the individual, not the institutions, not the shelters, not trainers, not, you know, behavioralists in their facilities. We need to teach people how to be behavioralists and trainers with their own dog. Oh, definitely. You know? Definitely. The things that I have asked you to do have emboldened you to a level that your dog has turned around in a matter of days. Correct. Yeah.
You have to
Now
stay
she
on
can-
top of that.
Now she can stay in our home, and I will keep her forever.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Well, Glenn and Deanna, thank you for coming on the show and sharing your journey with us. We will be in touch with you again to find out how both of your dogs are doing. And we want people to go to the Facebook, Fouché Way Facebook page, and take a look at the dogs and see,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
Beautiful dog.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for having us on the show, and thank you so much, Brandon. You've helped us be so much more knowledgeable and to keep my dog and not have her put down. So I want to thank you.
I am so happy for that.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take it easy, Glenn.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
You're
Bye-bye.
very welcome. Well, my next guest I'm very excited to talk to today, and that's a gentleman by the name of Scotland. Scotland, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Brandon. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. You know, I had the pleasure of talking to you once before. We were introduced on the phone. I remember it was this time pretty much last week that I actually for the first time heard your name. And the woman that works with you, what is her name?
Carla Goodson, I believe, was in contact.
Right,
with
Carla Goodson. She sent me a link to click onto, and I saw all the wonderful and fantastic work that you guys are doing, and I was just so excited to have you on. I want you to tell the people exactly what you do before we even start talking about you and I.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to do so, Brandon, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about our very similar philosophies in the way we address the issues of the world.
Wow.
You specifically the dogs, and me specifically the industries that profit from animal cruelty. I've been in this field a long time, Brandon. I started out as a humane officer and then kind of worked my way up the ladder and was the director of the New York City shelter, was the captain of humane law enforcement out in the San Francisco Bay Area, spent some time in India working with Maneka Gandhi, working on creating standards and building better shelters. And then, of course, I came back to the States and I built, as the executive director of the Washington Animal Rescue League, I built the world's first cageless animal shelter, a shelter that set animals up for success. And I'll want to get into that a little bit if we can.
Sure.
If we have time today about, you talked earlier about the biggest change needed to be with the individual. And I agree, as the consumer, we need to address the dog guardians, but we also need to address the institutions and the sheltering systems and the industries that profit from animal suffering. It all needs to be addressed, man. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
Well, a lot of people don't. I mean, when you say the industries that are profiting, what do you mean exactly? What does that mean?
So what we do is specifically, I looked at the gaps on a national and international level. And what I found is, you hear of puppy mills, you hear of hoarding cases, you hear of dog fighting cases, these large-scale cases you hear of on a irregular basis.
Mm-hmm.
What I found is they exist everywhere. Animal cruelty exists in all communities. I mean, there is animal abuse within miles of any American household right now, likely at a large scale. But it's not being addressed to the level it needs to be addressed simply because the resources aren't there. When we go out and do a large-scale rescue of a dogfighting operation or a puppy mill, for example, we're putting in somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 to bring in the equipment, the human resources, the expertise, everything necessary to do every aspect of this rescue. The rescue isn't just placing the animals. It starts with an investigation of the cruelty complaint. And after we've built our case, we go to the local law enforcement, and we work with them, and they get they obtain a warrant based on the information that we've obtained. Then we go in with them and extract the animals. We take the animals off the property, and as we take them off the property, we're processing them as evidence in a potential cruelty case. And then we're vetting them and saving their lives. And we've got our volunteers providing them with the necessary care and attention and socialization that they've never received before. And here we are in our emergency shelter somewhere in a rural area caring for hundreds of animals who we are rewarded by watching them turn into the animals they've never had the opportunity to be.
Right.
And once we've won custody of these animals, whether it's through a direct surrender or through the judicial process, we then place them with our placement partners throughout North America. And those placement partners would be rescue groups, foster networks, animal shelters. If they're not dogs or cats, if they're monkeys or other exotic animals, they might go to a sanctuary. But, you know, a lot of resources go into these rescues.
So this is not just dogs or cats. This is all animals that you're saying.
This is all animals, Brandon. And again, these are in rural. You know, the bad guys are hiding out. You know, the puppy millers and the dog fighters are hiding out in the backwoods of America because what they're doing is illegal and they know it. So, you know, these rural communities that have little resources may know that the cruelty is in existence there, but they can't, you know, police department can't go to their city manager and say, hey, I want to spend $50,000 on rescuing these 100 dogs from this puppy mill. City manager's never going to approve that. So that's why we established this organization, to be that resource for those communities so we can uncover and address these issues. And set these communities up for success that don't want cruelty within their community. So, and, you know, obviously we found that most people are not okay. Once they learn of the puppy mill or the dog fighting operation that's been happening in their community, they're not okay with it.
I'm sure you've got, on one hand, you've got stupidity, and then on the other hand, you've got intelligent stupidity that's happening, and then that's with these dog fighting rings, and then you've got those people that are, you know, just ignorant to what they should be doing, and they just need a little education. But how do people go about finding out who you are and where you are? I mean, if they needed your services, I mean, how does this work? Did you just get a call from an agency or a private individual or what?
Well, we get, you know, our name's spreading and continues to spread. We get, you know, at least a half dozen complaints of cruelty a day. People contact us either typically through our email, which is reportcruelty@animalrescuecorps.org. But, you know, we get Facebook messages as well. I mean, obviously that being a very common tool that people use today. So, you know, we've got our Facebook page, we've got our website. People find a way to get to us there.
I see. You know, there's something I want to ask you, too, about hoarding. You know, we get a lot of hoarders that are out there. And you go in and you assist these people or you confiscate the dogs, and those dogs have to be dealt with a specific way. Is that true?
Well, not only do the dogs do, but the hoarders do, because they're, you know, this is different than somebody who's profiting from animal abuse. You know, typically a hoarder actually started by thinking they were doing a good thing, so their intentions aren't cruel or for profit. Their intentions typically come from their heart.
Right.
But what we, you know, and we know very little about hoarding, but one thing we do know is it's a psychological disorder or malfunction, if you will. And, you know, as we learn more, we can better address the problems. But in my very strong opinion, right now, if I go and shut down a hoarding case tomorrow, I won't do it unless unless there's a system in place to address the person, because otherwise the person will go right back to it the very next day, and all I've done is enabled them by making space for more animals to come in.
Yeah, there's an old saying that those who rescue like that are those who need to be rescued themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But the dogs themselves, yes, Brandon. I mean, they're typically highly unsocialized dogs. They were bred on that property. Not intentionally, obviously, and they become wild animals, and they become part of a pack. So that is a very difficult animal to place when you're talking about what most people would consider a feral or semi-feral animal.
So can you give us an example of maybe some of the problems that one might run into with a dog that may be feral? Have you had a situation?
Our organization believes in exploring all resources in placing animals. So we're not a group that just goes in and rescues the animals and out of a matter of convenience has them put to death. I mean, we've spent all this time and money and resources to save their lives. We're committed to these animals. So we recently did a large case out in Tennessee, a hoarding case. It was 100 dogs, and then we had another case that fell on top of that one. So I think we had about 150 dogs in our emergency shelter
Wow.
And we assessed, when we rescue these animals and we bring them into our emergency shelter, one of the first things we do is assess their temperament, their behavior, because we need to identify how we're going to meet their needs in this emergency shelter, how we're going to temporarily meet their needs and start their rehabilitation process, if you will.
I like that.
Or at the very least, start their enrichment or socialization process.
Mm-hmm.
So we're assessing them to identify what their immediate needs are. Now, their immediate needs today very well may be different tomorrow, as you know, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
And this information, we're taking this information and we're giving it to our potential placement partners, because these are the folks that are ultimately taking on the responsibility of rehabilitating these dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can tell you is, when you're talking about fighting dogs or hoarded dogs or puppy mill dogs, these are all dogs that a lot of damage has been done to them.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them have only known a cage. These puppy mill dogs, these mother dogs that live in puppy mills, have never felt the security of the solid earth beneath them. They've never had a leash on them. They don't know how to walk. So these animals have more needs than your average animal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for us to partner up with groups that have the resources, the time, and the experience to rehabilitate these guys.
Great. Wow. That's pretty horrific. I mean, because there are dogs that are out there, just like you said, more than what people know. And they are living in homes, and some of these dogs, they just can't get turned around.
Well, I think, with the dogs that we're rescuing, again, our commitment, we maintain a commitment to these guys until we see it through.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, and we still have animals that we've rescued a year ago that are still in a rehabilitation process and not yet ready to go up for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
It is difficult.
Wow. We had a little conversation, you and I, Scotland, and I'm really happy to align myself to start becoming a part of what it is that you're trying to do, as well as working with the shelters, and specifically the Palm Springs shelter, because they've reached out to me, and we are already developing a relationship. And it's so important, as I was just talking to my last caller, that we must educate what I call the consumer, and those are the people who are adopting dogs from the shelter, as well as those people that are turning their dogs into the shelter. We've got to educate people, not from the concept of training, but from understanding the way nature intended a dog to process information. And when I mentioned that to you, you aligned yourself right with that. You said, I get that. That is exactly what we're trying to do. And it's so refreshing to hear that, because we talk to so many people who think that training and positive reinforcement is the only way to go. And I'm saying, if that were the case, then we'd be done. This thing would be finished. We've got to look at this in terms of socialization. We want to do advanced socialization. If we can socialize our dogs with everything that revolves around our life, then our lives are going to be better, and the dog's lives is going to be better. And I know you're working in that direction, and I tell you, man, I want to be a part of what's happening with you, and I want you to be a part of what I'm doing.
Well, I think you naturally fit in the animal sheltering world, Brandon, because let's face it, we've been putting animals behind bars for centuries, and yet we continue to do it, and we know it doesn't work. You take an animal that has either lived a traumatic life or just simply is going through trauma because they're entering into an animal shelter,
mm-hmm.
and you put them into a cage, but what happens immediately is they decline emotionally, right, socially, and physically.
Yes.
And they go through this deterioration process where, first they're lunging at the cage because experiencing this cage rage, as we call it, all the barking and the negative anxiety that's occurring around them. And so that is not a desirable dog for adoption, obviously. You're just going to pass that dog by.
Right.
He may be the sweetest dog in the world, but you're not seeing that.
Exactly.
Because he's reacting to this cage. The next phase is he's depressed. Now he's at the back of the cage, and he's depressed. And you may have empathy. Your heart may go out to him, you as the potential adopter. But now, still, this is not the dog you envision, with his head hanging out the window, sitting on your lap, going for long walks on the beach. And then the third phase they go through, depending on how long a shelter may keep the animal, is they start spinning in their cage. Well, they're going through psychological turmoil now. We have now ruined that dog, or come awfully close to ruining that dog.
Exactly.
Certainly, we don't have the resources in the shelter to bring him back because we're what caused that to begin with.
Right. There we go.
Right?
There it is. There it is.
And so this is what we do, and yet our goal is to find these permanent loving homes. Well, we're working against our mission. Clearly working against our mission. So what we need to do is think out of the box and how we can set not only the animal up for success, but the adopter up for success.
There we go.
And there are, don't get me wrong, there are some innovative programs out there in the sheltering world. But until we're no longer putting millions of animals to death in shelters every year, we don't have it right. And we need to keep improving and keep changing and keep evolving. And as I said earlier, Brandon, back in 2006, for 2 years, I raised $6 million and spent 2 years building a cageless animal shelter because I recognized that these steel bars cages don't work.
Exactly.
So I built a shelter that simulated real life as much as I could. And it reduced the length of stay significantly. It most importantly, it increased the life of the dog in the shelter. And it enriched his life and made him more adoptable.
That's wonderful. Scotland, I have this way of working with dogs. When they come in to me, or they've come from the shelter, or they've just been found off the street, I'm looking at that dog, and usually if the person has brought him to me, they've had him for some time, a couple of days or a month or whatever, and I ask a little information from them, because I'm evaluating the dog and I'm evaluating the lifestyle of the dog with that person.
Right.
And when you get a dog that's in the shelter and they go through these different steps that you just mentioned, they are prime opportunities for people that work at the shelter to use those different stages to bring them back,
Absolutely.
And the problem that we are having is that we don't know how to recognize why that is happening. We only see what is happening. But to understand why the dog is doing it, just like you explained it, makes it very easy to rehabilitate that dog and bring them out of that situation. When dogs are starting to decline within the shelter, they haven't gotten sick yet, but they are retreating in the back of the cage, that's the time to bring them out and to deal with them and socialize them and bring them back. The time that dogs are lunging at the cage, that's barrier aggression at that time. That's just simple survival. That's like backing a dog up into a corner, right?
Right.
You've got to have an experienced person that's going to be able to recognize that and say, oh, no, look, here are some techniques. I'm going to go in and get this dog out. And you will find 9 times out of 10, if you can get past the actual fear of that dog doing that, you will see that that is only a barrier aggression. And I'm sure you found that yourself. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can get right down, or you can sit right down in front of that cage, and that dog will lunge at that cage, and then all of a sudden, with your energy, that dog will stop and say, hey, you're not responding to this energy. Who are you?
Right.
And then that's the time that you can make the connection.
Easy as that.
Easy as that. And when you bring the dog in, I usually have these little cat leashes. A lot of times we put them on the dog when we put them in the cages, in the dog runs. And then if the dog does go into the back of the cage, you don't have to risk the chances of having to jump back, because a dog snapped at you, so that the dog feels that you're fearful, so that emboldens them. You're able to pick up the leash and bring them right out, and you will find, just like the dog that was lunging, that this is really what this dog needed, a leader to tell them how to think. And this is what the Fouché way, we call it the Fouché way here, is about. It's about understanding dogs from the concept of how nature intended for them to think. And so positive reinforcement is not the kind of reinforcement that comes from the way humans think, but what must be looked at from the way nature says. Because in the wild, there are no alphas handing out treats. There's no one saying good girl and good boy and giving them a pat on the head. Although we understand that that's a human thing, that comes after the leadership. And leadership is the number one thing that we must practice first. Would you agree?
In all aspects of our lives, yes.
Yes, yeah. And fear is a powerful motivator. We have to use it to enhance the dog's life. Even though they're going through it, we can take that fear and turn it around. Because as humans, we can have the fear of losing everything in life, or we can have the fear of getting a deadline done. One can send you to another level to be more successful, and one can take you further in the ditch, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what we're teaching here on the Fouché Way radio show. That's why I wanted you to come on, because it seems like you were right in line with what it is that I'm trying to do. And I want you to become a part of this. I want you to become Fouché'd so that we can build this network of people to help dogs in a way that's going to cause them, their quality of life to grow. And it's not all about the positive reinforcement, A lot of times you're teaching a dog how to sit and stay can be just the insecurity of the individual with not knowing how to socialize them with the very thing that they cause them to sit and stay for, And we need to start thinking about this. We need to start thinking about the dogs don't need stuffed animals to play with and tear up, and balls to chase after, and agility courses to be on. They need socialization. The very things that we do with them that create the predatory instinct within the dog is the very thing that ends up putting them in the shelter, because we don't understand that we're bringing the prey drive out of our dogs, and the moment they jump on a person or a child or another dog, it's off to the shelter they go. So we need different information. And that's why I want to talk to you, not only on the radio, but personally, because I want to express these things to you. Because if people like yourself completely understand the Fouché way, if the shelters and the Palm Springs shelter who's coming along is understanding the Fouché way, then, these dogs are not going to come back. But as much as I do, that a lot of shelters, when they adopt dogs out, they say, okay, the dog belongs to you, and good luck. We advise that you go and get a trainer or get some help to help you with this dog. And that's the extent. They have no other lifeline to that person. And I think that's wrong. I think that the shelters and the people that work there are going to have a higher level of knowledge, because ultimately, if something goes wrong, that dog is coming back to them. It's not going to go to the trainer. It's going to come back to the shelter. And then Scotland, what's going to happen?
Well, depending on the shelter, as you know, they can be put to death.
They're going to be put to death.
I'm not disagreeing with you one bit that these shelters, what they need is programs and mechanisms and, much as what you have to offer to set them and their animals and their adopters up for success. Mm-hmm. What shelters are limited on are resources and good leadership in many cases. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so I think what you're doing in Palm Springs, I think that's the perfect shelter to be working with, because this is a group that has, it was failing as a shelter since the beginning of time, and a group of individuals in the community got together and stood up and said, we're no longer going to accept failure in our shelter, and ultimately worked with the city to take over the shelter. And that just happened this past year. And so they've got a clean slate, and they've got their philosophy intact, and it's time to bring in some out-of-the-box thinking people like yourself and like me. As you know, I've been assessing them and working with them, setting them up for success as well. They're taking full advantage of these resources that we have to offer, and they're doing the right thing with it.
Well, it makes me feel so good. It's just like Christmas all over again when you get an institution and a person like yourself and what it is that I believe in and try to do to try to come together, man. I mean, it's like I can't tell you how I'm feeling right now. I mean, and we're going to be doing some things, and I want people to watch and tune in and listen to the Fouché Ray radio show, and we're going to have, people like yourself on again to talk about what you're doing, and we want to follow this. We want to follow the Palm Springs shelter, and we want to follow anyone that is willing to think out of the box and understand that we cannot continue to use a formula that has not been successful. And this formula was based on positive reinforcement. It was based on breeders breeding a domesticated dog that will come and live in our home that is subordinate. It was not designed for alphas, betas, and runts who are more connected to their environment than the individual. And so we need to look at it differently. So Scotland, man, time is rolling. I really excited that you came on, and that I hope that you will come on again and we will continue this. And I just want to thank you for talking to our listeners and telling them about what it is that you do.
Well, no, I appreciate the opportunity, and I got to tell you, man, I'm looking forward to getting Fouché. I hope it doesn't hurt.
Not at all, my friend, not at all. Well, thank you, Scotland, and
all right.
We will talk again, and thank you, listeners, for listening to the Fouché Way radio show. We'll see you here again next Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m.
You are listening to the most original talk radio station anywhere. We are LA Talk Radio at latalkradio.com.
You're listening to Fouché Way with Brandon Fouché, right here on LA Talk Radio.